First, we have Archana Srinivasan, the Director of HR Projects for Asia Pacific at Atkins Realis. Archana is a seasoned HR with over 12 years of experience in the field, having demonstrated a strong track record in managing end to end HR processes across various industries, ranging from technology all the way to animation. Her expertise encompasses HR consulting, people strategy, organizational design, to just name a few. Thank you so much for joining and sharing your invaluable insights, Archana. Next up, we have Bina Belani, the head of human resources for fashion and lifestyle technology at Geo Platforms Limited. Due to unforeseen circumstances, Bina couldn't join us, but I really wanted to take a minute out to introduce her as she was an integral part of the panel. Bina brings a wealth of experience having led HR functions across several major organizations, including SLK, Wipro, and Vedanta. Her strategic focus for organizational change management, employee engagement, and cultural transformation has earned her recognition as one of the top 20 influencers in learning and development. Additionally, she authored the remarkable book Lighthouse Chronicles, which I consider an extraordinary read. So do go check that out after this event. Joining us, we have Sangeeta Shetty, the head of people and global practice and delivery at Ascendian. With over 2 decades of experience in the IT industry, Sangeeta has a keen interest in developing people capabilities, building organizational culture, driving business growth through strategic HR initiatives. Her expertise in talent management, change management, and integration across multi client environments will provide us with profound insights into implementing a people first strategy during economic downturns. I'm so glad you could join us. We are also thrilled to welcome Arunangshu Chatterjee today. As the Chief Human Resource Officer at Vedanta Fashions Limited, he brings over 18 years of progressive experience from prominent organizations such as Tata, Airtel, and Samsung. His extensive expertise spans across performance management, HR policies, leadership development, and a deep understanding of HR functions across various regions in India. Thank you so much for being here. Unfortunately, Rohan could not make it today. However, we have someone equally brilliant and are absolutely excited to have Archit Patel as our moderator for the panel discussion. Archit is the CHRO and head of COE management systems at Megmoney LLP, where he has been instrumental in transforming operations from person based to policy based, fostering a culture of efficiency and performance optimization. With over 2 decades of experience, he has a proven track record in streamlining beyond company processes and enhancing organizational performance. Beyond his professional and academic endeavors, Archit is also a certified expert in neuro-linguistic programming and competency mapping, underlining his commitment to personal and organizational development. I am so thrilled that you could join us, Archit, today. And now I'll give
Thank
it over
you.
to you.
Looks like we've lost them. Maybe we can start off, Archit. That's okay.
There is no voice, I guess.
We can hear you.
No, we can't hear you.
Am I audible now?
Yeah.
Yes.
You're on mute right now. You're on mute. Now,
It's no.
now you can.
Okay, is it
Now,
okay now?
yes, yes, yes.
So, good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'll be able to successfully fill in for Rohan. Rohan happens to be a dear friend of mine, and I expect to be of good value addition. And the topic I have gone through is quite interesting, and I can't wait to listen to all your views and creative inputs. So I think we can start. Bina was to start first, but I think we can start with Archana.
Sure. Yeah, sure, Archana.
Yes, thank you.
Right. Okay. Sorry, I think the question just popped up, but it disappeared.
I think we'll take the questions later on. If you have
Okay.
slides or some content to share, we can start with that.
Sure, sure. No, I think not really content as such, but I think maybe I'll just start off and share in terms of the context, right, in which
Right,
we are having
right,
this discussion.
right,
I think it was more around how do we manage downturns and what would be some of the HR strategies that we can adopt during downturns. I think the main point which I wanted to, raise and remind ourselves just to start and set the context is that during turn I think for most of us our time gets hijacked, right? We end up having to deal with the situation, whether it's a pandemic or it's a economic challenge or it's a country related issue, etc. So I think the first and foremost thing is for all of us to understand, and it's not unique to HR, right? So in any business, even if it's a charity organization, I think during economic downturns, everyone is under pressure, or any kind of downturn, right? People are all under pressure. So, talking specifically about HR, what I would say is what has worked for us, because I mean, having worked in this profession for about 18 years and in my current company for the last 12 years, we have seen a lot of ups and downs. Both internal challenges and external challenges. I think what
right,
has really helped us from a HR strategy perspective, I would say, is keeping our sort of eyes and ears open, and constantly listening to employees and managers and the business overall. Because that really then keeps us relevant in the current condition, because either we'll be busy doing our current things in the same way, and sometimes we need to adapt to the challenges, or it could be that, like I said, our times are hijacked. So I would say that's the most important thing. I think the other thing on top of it is, I will say, two key sort of north stars which I wanted to bring about. I think one is keeping the purpose or the values of the organization at the forefront, because when there are challenges, we all tend to be put in situations where we have to take difficult decisions or compromise on certain things. So I think keeping the company's or the organization's values and purpose becomes really important, because then that will help us remind ourselves and validate whether our decisions and judgments and activities are in order. So one, I would say, is keeping that north star around values and purpose. And the second thing I would say is constant communication. And for me as a HR professional, keeping everyone informed, not just business and managers, but also employees and your own HR teams, right? Like, for example, I manage a team of HR professionals, and they themselves will also need support. So keeping communication constant, and I will say the most important thing is consistent communication, because sometimes we think that we communicate one off and then people get it, but sometimes people don't get it, right? So one, we have to help them connect the dots, which means that you need to communicate something multiple times and ensure that there is consistency in communication. So I'll say these are the two main things, apart from keeping eyes and ears open to all levels in the organization. But the two north stars, like the way I would call it, those are the two main points which I wanted to bring about in terms of what could be useful HR strategies.
Right. Thank you, Archana. I think, Niharika, can we have debrief or questions all together, or we can have one by one? I've got some points noted, but we can have all together later on. I
I
think
think
we'll have
Niharika is
questions.
probably not here. So,
So can I ask uh, Arunangshu
Yeah, hi.
if you want? Hi.
So, uh, the downturn, as we say, or
Sorry
maybe,
to interrupt you, Arunangshu. Are you sharing your screen? Because I think your video is not working.
so my camera, I think, is not working because this is
Okay.
a new laptop. I don't have
Okay.
any presentation to share. I
That's
wasn't
fine.
prepared for that.
That's fine.
Okay, sorry, the camera needs some settings which I'm not good at. So what happens is, first of all, the company's philosophy and the values becomes very important. Be it a downturn or an upturn, the people first policies become important. So the leadership, the quality of people managers we have, that is very key. What I have seen and what we have practiced is that in a downturn, we understand that in a capitalist economy, it is a time that will pass. So the best thing is to prepare for the upturn. So we try to divert the energy, the focus energies of the organization towards more of learning, development, preparing for the downturn to get over. So all the energy and effort is towards communicating our strategy there. Of course, through the performance management system and everything, the targets, the goal, all of the targets primarily are moderated. But definitely an important part for any market facing organization will be the market share. While revenues will fall and profitability might also fall, we try to ensure that we hold on to our market share or maybe increase our market share. That becomes key, and that means that even if it is a downturn, our folks, our guys are trying their best and they are winning it in the market. On the other side, we try to focus on learning, development, upskilling our people. That becomes very important, taking care of our best talent, top talent. And nobody should get insecure about a downturn and that there will be layoffs and so on. Of course, it is linked to companies' cash reserves or deep pockets, I understand, but it is equally linked to a people first policy. What I mean is that I have heard, I'll give you an example of Southwest Airlines where the CEO and the HR head have stood up and requested all for a salary cut rather than a cut in the headcount. And people have taken salary cuts. So they have treated their employees like a second family and accordingly sailed through these depressing times. So all of this is possible. Yes, if you have deep pockets, many more things are possible. But having a philosophy of a people first policies and approach in place and really walking the talk is very important. That is what people experience at the last mile, and that is what gives them a psychological safety, a feeling of safety that whatever happens, I am with the company and they are there for me. Over to you,
Right,
Archit.
right. Thank you, Arunangshu. I think now we can have one more session. We can start with Sangeeta.
Um, yeah, hi. Thanks, first of all, for making me part of this forum where I'm able to share my perspectives, road to recovery. Before that, a little bit about myself, and thanks to Niharika for having shared details about the profile in the past. I currently manage a company which is into IT engineering solutions and which has been we built over the period last 3.5 years from a startup setup to account. Today we are like more than 4,500. So it's been a fast growth. Having said that, all through our stint, we were largely born in pandemic, and that was the biggest downturn for all of us. And uh, without any option, I think we were all supposed to be more empathetic and sensitive towards people needs. And no other situation has taught us how differently or how are we supposed to act. What worked in that situation largely, or even today, when the market is dynamic and there is it's so volatile, there is a need for people, and especially people in the times of crisis, there is a dire need. Need for information is high, and therefore there is this bit of communicating constantly or sharing information of how we are progressing, how each and every step is helping or not helping is prime important. This gives people a perspective of where your organization stands and the confidence. And this also helps people trust in the people, and they help or partner alongside you. And human beings, I think individuals, um, all are able to relate to the situation when that is well explained. And that is the job of the organization, especially in situations like this. So simply, rather than trying to be perfect in the space and trying to put up a face, it's important to create an environment which is more honest and open and enabling, allowing people to be so. So choosing candor over charisma is what I would suggest in this case. Also, individually, personally, and professionally, people go through tough times. In different forms, they get impacted. So there is a need, and resilience as a skill is at test at that time. So, as an organization, is important to revitalize that, and everything that you can do to ease the people on the ground and uh, help them, fuel them with more energy to manage the situation in hand from both ends, personally and professionally. These are few things I feel that when put in action, does a good job of taking people along and helping them see where you stand and that you are with them in the journey, and you are also going through the same journey as they. Yeah. So this is a nutshell, Archit, from my perspective of what is people first strategy and what are the things that matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Sangeeta. I think we have good food for thought and we can take forward our discussion. So I have not exactly questions, but few points to further our topic, further our discussion. So if it is okay, I can start with Archana.
Yeah, sure, Archit. Yeah.
So Archana, talking about especially from talent development perspective, and with the inputs that you shared, would you be able to share some very precise strategies, especially in talent development, which were especially useful for with perspective of your organization? And
Hmm.
with the budget constraint and all in place,
Right.
with your multinational presence, so can you share some very precise talent development strategies that work for you?
Sure, Rachit. I think since it's in the context of road to recovery, maybe let me start off by saying this. It's not just when you have a downturn. I think for any organization, what I've seen is when there is a cost pressure, the first thing that gets cut, unfortunately, is the training budget. So in
Easiest
many
thing.
organizations, yeah, in many organizations, it doesn't exist formally because if you publish something, then you are accountable for it, right? So it's either never spoken, or even if it's spoken, it's the first thing that's unfortunately saved, right? So and we have seen that over the years, and it doesn't take a pandemic to get to that situation. Your next quarter numbers don't look good, then you start squeezing. So I think what has worked for us, and I think it would work for most organizations, is maybe disassociating cost with learning and talent development, because a lot of things actually don't
Right.
need
Right.
cost association. And wearing my HR hat, for most people who are in HR, you will know there is this 70-20-10 principle that we all apply, wherein what we say is 70% of the learning or development actually happens on the job, which means that you just take up a new project, or you take up a new assignment, or you just start working with a new team, etc., right? So just get that additional exposure on the job. And then 20%, the 70-20-10, right? 20% we say is social learning, which means that you're learning from your colleagues, right? Or you're learning from other
That's correct.
people. So whether it could be mentoring or coaching or anything. And if we actually think of it, social learning is something that we all use even in our daily lives, right? So I'll give an example. And I was reading this earlier while researching on something, so I'll share it here because it's relevant. So there was this question saying that if you want to change a light bulb in your house and you don't know how to do it, what would you do, right? You're not going to go for a training program, right? You will most probably ask someone in your house, or ask someone who you think knows, or you're going to Google it, or just find the answer yourself. So I think the power of trying to figure out the information through people around us, I think, is also powerful. And then the last 10% is the formal training, which is like some form of classroom training. Again, within that, sometimes you can do it without cost. For example, we do a lot of in-house trainings where we just get like one department to share what they're doing with other departments, or we get someone senior to come and talk about their work to the junior so that they understand. If we combine that with something like social learning, where I was talking about, reverse mentoring is another concept that's picking up a lot in our organizations and in a lot of organizations, wherein it's not just a senior person teaching a junior person, right? How can a senior person learn from a junior person? So I think the 70-20-10 principle has really helped us, because one, it takes away the pressure of cost, because you can actually learn and develop without having to spend. And we believe that true learning actually happens like that. But of course, we all value that 10%, right? Because everyone likes to go for that paid course, cut off from your work, go sit in a classroom, totally disconnect from work. And also, if you spend some money and get a certificate, it's always good. So I'm not trying to belittle the formal training that's required, but I will say that having the 70-20-10 principle and trying to learn as much as possible, without sort of getting fixed over external classroom training, I think that would help. And maybe during a downturn or during a cost pressure situation, I think if the 70-20-10 can be flexed, right? You do more of the 70. I think that is something that helps. But the most important thing is to not forget that training is important. I think many a times what happens during difficult times is we just forget about it, right? Because other things become more important, like your job security, whether you're doing your job, whether you're contributing, are you visibly, putting in the effort, etc. So those things take more importance naturally. It's normal human tendency. But I think, yeah, trying to prioritize learning all the time, and also trying to flex the 70-20-10 and focus more on the 70 during challenging times would be something I would say works, and it has worked for us in our organization. I hope that answers to some extent. Sorry, Archit, you're on mute. Can't hear you.
one more question before we ask people who have joined us for the questions for Archana. Uh, so, in your experience, managing HR across diverse region, what are the key strategies to use to align your HR initiatives? I mean, this is a broader question, broader than the previous question, but if you can share some strategies. You are on mute.
Sorry, it was my turn to go on mute and forget to unmute. So, uh, so what I was gonna say is, again, some of the HR strategies. I think firstly, what has worked for us is, I think the first easy port of call is to leverage what you already have, right? So, during downturn or a challenging situation, sometimes we need to do things differently. So again, pandemic is an easy example. Or even if, let's say, a company is going through restructuring, or downsizing, or closing one business and opening another business line, etc. Like what Sangeeta was saying, sometimes you pivot and you have exponential growth. So I think during those situations, I think leveraging existing resources helps for us, because it's a multinational company and we have a large presence. We have some resources that are already available. For example, our employee assistance programs, or some tools that already exist for support. So what we do during those times is then just customize, right? So if, let's say, you're in the pandemic, then we have more webinars or training or counseling sessions on how to deal with the pandemic, about mental resilience, etc. And then when you have a restructuring kind of situation, then you change the topic, right? So then we will talk more about like wellness, and how to manage stress, etc. So I would say the first and the easiest thing would be to just do continue to do what you're doing, but adapt it to the current situation depending upon what the downturn is. I think the second thing I would say is, again, very similar to what I mentioned at the start, in terms of aligning to your values and your North Star. So for us, for example, offering people flexibility and the choices was something that worked during difficult times. So whether it is in the form of a remote working request, or for example, even during COVID, right? Because that's an easy example, where the most of the governments actually mandated that you have to go to a clinic and get tested, whereas we said that you don't have to go to a clinic, you can self test or self declare that you're sick, and you don't have to prove to us. We will take care of it. So similarly, even for remote working, right? So someone says that I have a personal need, I have a challenging time, and I need to go, and even for females, for example, they were not comfortable to give birth in certain locations and they wanted to go elsewhere. So wherever the organization has the option to be flexible, I think that would be another part that companies can consider. So I would say, one, leverage what you already have. Two, in whatever you're doing, see how you can be flexible. And of course, if we all had a lot of money, we would do more things, right, that we can spend on. So that I won't talk too much, because if we all had so much resources, we will all do wonderful things. So I will probably focus just on these two things, because if we have constraints, then what best can we do in those constraints? Yeah.
Right. Okay. So thank you, Archana. Now, I'd request Arunangshu for few of his inputs, especially pertaining to performance management. So my first question is about performance management. So, in your leadership role at Samsung, how did you ensure fair and effective performance management during the economic uncertainty or business crisis?
Well, performance management system, it's the backbone of all the HR processes and systems. And regardless of the economic downturn, or if it is upswing, it has to be fair and objective. Because if it is not, it will demotivate the entire lot. In fact, it will be absolutely lopsided scenario, in terms of top talent being demotivated and the bottom talent being more motivated, because they have got more than what they did, what they deserve, what they delivered. So setting goals, I mean, there are different philosophies and approach for that. I mean, some companies follow a balanced scorecard. So we followed an MBO, management by objectives. And basis that, we try to make everything as quantifiable as possible. And then we try to cascade that through different measures. Communication definitely is one of the key things. Maybe one of the very important things is that getting the entire leadership team in a room and discussing about the divisional organization and divisional goals, objectives, and how does that cascade to the strategic focus areas and some of the action measures that we'll be focusing on. So it is a little bit about the process performance management system, where the cascade, how the process is followed at every level up to the last mile, that has to be ensured. Uh, to the extent it is on a system and ERP, maybe PeopleSoft, we were on Workday where things are recorded. It is all digital, and the cascade is absolutely easy to look at. People have a line of sight. So it not only helps them to link their KRAs, KPIs to the big objective, to the big rocks, and they find more meaning in their work. Parallelly, we had to ensure that the quality of people managers that we have at every level, who will be instrumental and who will be front-ending that, and they are adequately equipped to have those dialogues,
Right.
conversations, give those feedbacks, and ensure that they are able to build and lead a high performance team. So there are a lot of tough conversations that are to be had, but then how do you have it? HR is not structured to be present in every conversation. So that is why we put a lot of energy and effort in training our people managers and developing them so that they are able to build and lead a high performance team through the performance management system and do a very fair and objective job themselves as a people manager. And of course, as a part of the process, there will be reviews of these goals and targets, and feedback will be given to the people. Parallelly, in fact, the best of the people will get recognized. It could be monetary, it could be non-monetary, and linked to that, there will be compensation and career related decisions. So this is how we try to ensure that everything is open and transparent to the extent that it should be. So somebody who is a top talent, they are undisputed top talent because their contributions are seen and it is kind of felt at a divisional level or at a company level. And there has been continuous dialogues and feedback given to the bottom performers, so that doesn't come to them as a surprise or shock, and there is no negativity in the system because of that. The third thing, which is very important, is in terms of the support given to the people who are low performers or bottom performers. So what is the kind of extra support? Could be in terms of learning development, could be in terms of a job rotation. If this is not a good fit for him, the role profile fitment is not best or appropriate. Could be something else. But how can we support them? There have been times when we have supported a low performer with even deployment outside the company. So it turned out to be a win-win situation. So we helped them, get a job outside with the help of consultants, help them to rewrite their resumes in a most professional manner, and supported them. So all in all, it depends that how much support We are extending to the people managers, to the leaders. We are able to sensitize them the significance of this process and the effect of it at every level and to every person in the organization. This ensures the success of it. And the difference between a downturn and maybe a boom, economic boom, is not much actually. So, in the case of a downturn, of course, the targets will be softer. The targets in the case of a sales team will be more in terms of market share. In the case of a production team, will be more in terms of quality rather than number of defects that are happening. Or the focus will shift on efficiency, optimization. So these are some things that will take precedence in the case of a downturn. There would be a lot of projects that we did during the downturn, during the COVID times. There was a lot of focus on different improvement projects. So we spent a lot of energy time on that, with projects that led to automation, projects that led to technology upgradation, projects that led to better marketing initiatives when the market was ready for it. Projects that led to a boom in our e-commerce division. So that is where all the KRAs, KPIs got shifted, and that is how we utilized our talent and all their ingenuity. Thank you.
Thank you, Arunangshu. Uh, we have one question from the participant. I think it would be for Archana. If Archana can take that question. The question is, what innovative HR practices or strategies have you implemented that significantly boosted employee engagement and productivity during challenging times? Some case examples, some case studies.
Sure, sure. Um, I think in terms of riding on the earlier point around communication, I would say that one thing that did help on the ground was enabling line managers to also do the communication. I know it sounds like a very simple thing, but many a times what happens is HR sends newsletters, CEO does town halls, etc. But what we've realized is people actually trust only if they hear it from the line manager. So one thing that we had to do was, train the line managers and give them the key messages to communicate. In terms of initiatives, I think there was a question more one around strategy and also around initiatives. I think during downturns, maybe if I take the pandemic as an example, because without an example it'll be a little bit challenging. I think what worked for us during the pandemic in terms of initiatives was, I'll say, two parts. I think one is all the well-being related initiatives, because it was a time, for example, when people couldn't go out, right? So but it is important to stay fit, because you're in the middle of a pandemic. So we did a lot of virtual, Pilates, kickboxing, kind of events. And the beauty of doing virtual events is like this one is that you can have people, logging in from anywhere in the world, right? As long as the time zone works, and you're just paying for one trainer. And you can cover as many people as you want, and you don't have to force people to turn on cameras, which means that they can do their own kickboxing without showing themselves on camera. So I think, and then we had to brand it, like I said, the consistency in communication, that's important. So we had to call it something. So we called it Wellness Wednesday. So we had a calendar and we said, okay, over the next few weeks, every Wednesday there will be one activity, and then we will follow that. So that is one thing. I think the second thing, I touched upon communication, I touched upon some initiative. I think I will also talk to the earlier point which I mentioned around flexibility, right? So I think I already talked about allowing people to self test and self declare. I think one more thing we did was, for example, so whenever we have town halls, right, we will always serve some food in the office. whereas during the pandemic no one was coming to the office, right? So again, this you can only do if you have the cost and the logistical bandwidth. But what we did is, during a town hall, we actually sent a snack pack to everybody's home. Again, if you have 20,000 people, you can't do it. We didn't have so many. We only had less than 100 in each location. So but it was also logistically quite challenging, because you had to find a company that can deliver to so many unique addresses and then send. So when people were about to log into the town hall, like 1 hour before, there was a delivery at the door, and it was just like simple stuff. It was not expensive, just some nuts and some snacks that you can have along with your coffee, because the town hall was around I think 4 o'clock. So I think, again, some of these take resources, time and resources. So if you can do that. Otherwise, you can think of things that you can do free of cost or with very less cost, like the virtual sessions that we organize. So I would say that when you have any situation, again, I will go back to my same two north stars. Leverage what you already have and customize it to people. And two, keep your company values at the forefront. So see what will work, and then decide how much cost and resources you have, and then you pick your options. So I think as long as there's some structure, you can always make things work. So I think those are probably a few examples that I would share.
Okay, thank you, Archana. Uh, Before we take on next question from the participants, I have one question for Sangeeta. You talked about conducive environment for the employees, and especially, so what I understood from conducive environment is talking about people centricism. Some organizations are business centric, some organizations are process centric. So you talked about being people centric. So can you give some example how you shifted or how you managed to keep your organization people centric?
Um, yeah, I think some of those that I may just mention may sound repetitive, because all of those factors are keeping the people in focus and trying to see, the different needs that they have on the ground and address on time to time basis. So all the examples that Archana spoke about, or Arunangshu spoke about, they were all keeping in mind the people, because we belong to that fraternity. And so all the interventions are towards that. However, there is a fine balance that we have to often do, because the core of our company's existence is because of the business that we do. And there are situations where there is a need for you to take decisions which may be more inclined towards business. Um, uh, like I said, the foundation of our existence is business, so you cannot discount that. But what you can least do is enable people. So the things like Arunangshu talked about, when you had to take a call, but there are instances where they enabled and guided them with avenues where they could be redeployed or placed. These things talk about the people first approach as such. Um, so I think in the early days, the same example that we all talk about, when we were so particular about our people being safe. And I do remember a conversation with my CEO and the sales head then, that our call would be to take, at that point in time, what was important was people's safety during the COVID times. And it would have to a certain point made us take a call of telling our clients that though you want our people, because a lot of companies early, after the peak pressure was down, they started calling people to office, and some of the clients may have also. So we were of the view that if it gets to a point that a client insists, we may take the stance and suggest that we would still want to operate on a remote model, because then that was the need per se. So some of these calls and that top-down approach and that alignment is what I would say is a people-first approach or a standpoint per se. Are some of the examples that Archita I can quote talk about at this point.
Thank you, Sangeeta. We can have questions from the participants, Niharika, or I can move to another question. I think
Moral.
this
Is
is
that question?
this question is for, yeah, this question is for, I think, addressed to Sangeeta.
Okay.
I
So,
think this is supplementary to what you just said, but we would like to hear.
yeah. Um, Two things what I can recall. Sorry, all my examples are related to all the past 3 4 years that we have been going through. Um, we all focus on the diversity, the gender diversity as a pillar. And there is often a need or interventions that we do towards development of people. In such context, our focus towards women and women leadership was also at the core. Having said that, we look at potential, we look at performance, but here in the example that I would quote, our approach towards all women was little uniform, where we felt that the women in the scheme, in the whole COVID scheme or situations that were pulling them from all corners, there was a need for them to get a space to internalize, and for all, not necessarily all. Meaning after a certain level and above, like for managers, senior managers in our organization, we put together a curriculum which helped the women um, uh, step out of their their house roofs or their office spaces if they were working from office, and step out and have their own space where they could internalize, introspect, and witness the potentials that they possess, and be energized with the right tools and rituals which they can adapt, and bring a new version of their own self. And this was called Revive. Revive, it's like a new beginning and re-energizing. And this was a big this was received very very well by the women folks, where they saw a difference, and it was acknowledged that this is not the run of the mill or the development trainings that we do, and there was no filtration, but we all were given an opportunity to have our find our own selves. And at that point of time, and till today too, given where we talk about the cliche feedback giving, or uh, how do you do feedback sessions to your team members, or how do you do presentation skills, this curriculum was completely different, and that was well appreciated, and it has really boosted the morale of our women colleagues. Of the lot that we had, I think several of them have come out, and their potentials have been showcased. Some have relocated to on-site. So I feel that has really boosted the morale of the women folks in the organization. This was one. Okay. There was another question. I'll pause
Yeah,
now,
please go
Archit.
on to this next question. Yeah.
It went. You'll have to read out that question for me if you could read that. What are the
No, you can
technologies that,
finish it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm done with my first answer, is all I said. Um, my second bit of
I
example on
think,
the positive, yeah.
yeah, please go on.
Okay. So the second bit was where we brought in an environment where the leadership or the team leaders and the team members could, appreciate the bond and the partnership that existed between the two. We have a format that we created where team members were open to share about the great things that their managers do, and in the same spirit, also do some things that they wish that there could be a change, and it would bring a change and strengthen the bond. And in the process, also ask the team members how would they want to support their leaders. By a sheer mention of these questions, it evoked a sense of ownership and togetherness between the team and the team leaders, at what we sensed. And not only this as a concept or a format, we brought this in a digital environment and an accessible and quick, responsible. And as an outcome of this, as a whole format, the team leaders had to acknowledge, or the team members were leaders were happy to learn about the team members' input for them, and also they could pick up the areas that they need to do better. And this acknowledgement by the people leaders helped the team members open up, and as a overall outcome, with 200 different people leaders who were participated in the overall organization, which leveraged it, there was a spirit of strengthening the bond kind of seemed strengthened, and we celebrated, and it was well acknowledged by the leaders also. This also boosted the morale of the people leaders, and at the same time team members, because their views were acknowledged. These are too few things which we did.
Thank you very much, Sangeeta. Next question is for Arunangshu. So, how have you leveraged technology to enhance HR practices and create a resilient and motivated workforce?
Oh, well, the last two organizations I have worked for, they were quite advanced in terms of technology. So when I joined Samsung, they were in the process of implementing Workday all across globally. So we saw the change with Workday. Sorry, there is an employee function underway, so you could hear some background voices. So it's Friday evening, so you see how we try to motivate and prepare them for family time. So the other two companies
That will
I
bring
last
some
about-
liveliness to the conversation. I hope it is not
Yeah.
getting too dry.
In fact,
Unfortunately, we
I am
can't
only
see.
HR
only getting a little distracted.
conversation shouldn't be this dry.
Yeah, that's right. So when I had joined Samsung, I remember we were in the process of implementing Workday. So Workday definitely was a paradigm shift for us, and because it integrated us in terms of our people, processes, practices, and programs globally. So what happened is a lot of things opened up to all our employees who were there. So I will particularly focus for our sales employees because they were spread across the entire country. I mean, the smallest of the place that you could imagine, we would probably have an employee there. Okay, maybe one of the remote villages of Bihar, or maybe down south, somewhere in Karnataka. So with technology, everybody feels that they are connected to the organization. So communication flow is more seamless. All career related opportunities are visible to the person who is sitting in one of the tier 3 cities in Bihar, or maybe a tier 3 city in Kerala. Okay, so he knows what are the opportunities anywhere else. What is the requirement for it in terms of experience, exposure, competencies, and skills. So he doesn't feel left out of the organization. With technology, in fact, we shifted 80% of our learning and development interventions online. So in fact, over a period of time, we'll get the benefit of it in terms of savings in travel and stay and all of that also. But the first most important benefit is that anybody anywhere had access to n number of best of the class modules, learning modules. Maybe it was the first 10% and the 20% of learning, which Archana also referred to, the 70-20-10 model. So the 10% is more about the knowledge piece of it, and the 20% is again the social part of it. But if a person, that's why I'm giving you the example of a sales force, a person who is by himself at a location, for him the social learning becomes only basis the technology and all these platforms that he has. So he had immediate access to unlimited modules, maybe over Udemy, maybe over LinkedIn, maybe over Harvard Management, all of that. And he had access to become a part of 2 or 3 different projects, national projects that we were running across the country. So one could volunteer and become a part of it. And of course, there would be a selection process for it. But all the opportunities were now equally available to him, and he was equally connected to a person as somebody who was at the region office or at our head office in Gurgaon. The other piece is that we, in fact, developed an app through which the entire employee self service piece, application of leaves, looking at your salary slips, and all those things, it was made so easy that it was an app on your mobile phone and it was at the touch of a finger. So these are some things that we did to not only engage our employees, the remote sales employees, but also to motivate them and get them connected to the organization purpose, values, our key objectives, and got them to be an integral part of the team and contributing in terms of participation in projects, participation in different webinars, and different kind of uh, certain meetings that are happening that will happen in terms of some ideathon. These were some things that used to run to generate ideas, ideathon, so they could feel connected, contribute more, and be a part of the organization and experience that.
Thank you, Arunangshu.
Thank you, everyone.
We have one more question. Again, it is furthering your question that you've answered. It says the question is to know some of the creative approaches you have taken to foster strong and positive organizational culture. You have exemplified it, but if you have any more precise example, you can share.
See, organization culture, it is something a little intangible, but it is very, very, very
Right.
important because it has to be experienced, it has to be felt, and this flows from the top. So, to make culture happen and for us to sustain that, there has to be certain degree of standardization of leadership behaviors. Leaders, and the first thing, the culture should reflect the company's values. So the leaders have to know basically that, you know, what do we live for and what are the practices, behaviors to demonstrate. So some people do that very well, fantastically, and some people have to be coached, even the leaders. Some leaders have to be coached and mentored. So this is the most important part of the process because they are role models, and the way they will behave on the job, the way they will have their goal setting dialogues, the way they will give feedback to a top performer and also to a bottom performer, the way they will be disciplined and dedicated in terms of the strategic objectives and the strategic measures, reviewing them, monitoring them, and extending their full support to the teams in terms of problem solving, in terms of giving them some ideas, some small ideas which the rest of the
Right.
team will take forward and make it large. not giving the full solution to them. That is how they also develop people. So that becomes key in terms of culture
Right.
formation, in terms of culture building and sustaining the culture. And here HR has to parallelly, apart from sensitizing and coaching some of the leaders, HR has to be a conscience keeper, that are there some behaviors, some actions being taken which is contrary to this, that they have to be vigilant about, and then HR has to then give feedback to those people that it is not in line with our approach and our efforts. So this has to be a consistent effort, a continuous effort, and there has to be a missionary approach to it. This on and on and on and
Right.
on. There has to be a missionary approach to it.
Thank you, Arunanshu. Uh, I think we have had a good qualitative discussion. Now, being moderator, I take it as my purview to pose one last question, if anybody wants to take it. Uh, I'm just curious to know that during this emergency time, pandemic time, were there any practices that the organization realized or HR helped organization realize that they were not needed anymore or they required complete revamping? Complete thought process needs to be changed. For example, pharmaceutical or sales driven organizations, the traveling was almost stopped, yet companies did good business. I mean, many of the companies couldn't do so well, but some of the pharmaceutical companies, not only because of pandemic, but for a very long time, even when the traveling stopped, their sales managers and medical reps stopped traveling, the businesses went on. So many pharmaceutical companies that I know of have started rethinking in terms of necessity of traveling, necessity of spending money on traveling. And rather than they started focusing or spending that money on the qualitative aspect and fine tuning the training of the sales force. So were there any practices that you came across?
Maybe if I can start off, I
And with
think
that
what
question,
you
sorry, but with that question, we can conclude.
Sure. Maybe we
Yeah,
can,
please
get
go on.
everyone's views. I'll say it very quickly. I think what you mentioned, Archit, that was going to be very, very similar to what I'm going to say. I think I'll say virtual is the key word, right? So I think
Right,
virtual
right.
meetings, not having to travel. I'll say, virtual training, I think, which, Arunangshu earlier touched upon, right? Like now you don't have to really fly people or make them go somewhere else to, do stuff. So I think virtual is really the key word. So one other trend that has really taken up in this part of the world is also, like, for example, telemedicine, right? Like virtual doctor consultations, right? Which we wouldn't have
Yes.
even, thought of previously. Um, and we started empaneling those options so that it's easier for people to approach. So um, I think the need to do things in a certain way, and many a times in the past it was in person. I think we've started questioning everything and started, even like virtual interviews. Now it's very common to do even these kind of webinars, right? Earlier, to attend conferences, I'll go to a hotel and sit in the room for a full day and then listen. But now we do virtual webinars. So I think for me, virtual is the key, and everything is going virtual now.
Okay, I'll go next. We have seen certain practices
Key.
pick up during the
Right.
pandemic because of some restrictions, also because there were travel restrictions. It could have been unsafe to get close to a person, and all of those was there, and we did what was necessary. And as it is, my last company, Samsung Electronics, was a technology aided company, so we were to a certain extent well equipped for that. Having said that, we want all our employees, I'm sure every company, all our employees, especially the managers, to be more entrepreneurial in nature. Okay, so that means that there is no fixed rule or something, a straight jacket that fits all. We have to apply our mind and apply our judgment that where I need to travel and where I can manage virtually. So there could be a lot of partners, channel partners, or customers, or big somebody there who is a little traditional in his approach, and he prefers to actually meet the guy in person, because he has a mindset that if he thinks that if that company representative is coming to me in person, he is attaching a certain degree of value and importance that is being given to him. So it was just an example. That means that I have to be entrepreneurial in my approach and decide where I should travel, how much I should travel, so that my productivity or my team's productivity and output is not compromised. At the same time, we are being cost conscious and we are optimizing on my resources and using technology to the fullest. This is the approach that we had taken. I mean,
Right.
it's easier said done. It's definitely much easier than done. But again, it goes as a part of our developing the people managers, that they are able to take some calls, some tactical calls on the ground for their respective teams, keeping the organization objectives in mind. Thank you.
Uh,
Thank you,
Thanks,
Arunangshu.
Arun. Yeah. Do we have time, Archit, or I'm okay to skip?
Yes, Sangeeta, you can. I am sure uh, they will grant us that much of favor.
Okay, so I don't think this step may have helped us anywhere save any cost like the travel suggestion or the virtual thing we are talking about. But of course, this was, at the times where we had to install a lot of mechanisms to track on people coming to office or logging into office. I know of scenarios where companies have installed certain systems because there was no swipe in, swipe card to office, but we had to track basically, are they logging into premises or not? Were at that time, we at an organization level were observing certain redundant steps which required it to do some on duty regularization on a day to day basis. And that was duplicating with filling in timesheets and so on. However, at an organization level, to message that to people that there is trust and flexibility offered to people as long as the productivity is not compromised, we completely eliminated this redundant step of people filling in that off duty regularization on day to day basis, and adding that additional transaction to their day to day function. So these are very fine steps, but I'm sure on the ground it make a lot of difference in relief to people and set a message and added some points to us on building trust towards the organization. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone.
Wonderful. This
Uh,
has been
Thank
so
you.
great. Thank you so much, all of you, for coming out.
Thank you,
I could go
Niharika.
all day listening to each one of you for all these wonderful insights. And I may just disturb you whenever I get some time. So I would like
Thank
to
you.
extend the deepest gratitude to everyone who could make it here today. I would really like to thank Archana, Arunangshu, and Sangeeta for sharing your expertise and experiences. Your perspectives on navigating economic downturn has been inspiring and informative. I'm also really grateful to Mr. Archit. Your guidance and thoughtful questions has steered this discussion to cover the most critical aspects of our topic today.
Thank you.
And to our audience, thank you so much for your active participation and engagement. Thank you once again to everybody involved, and I look forward to seeing all of you to our future events. Have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you.
Thank
Sure.
you. Bye bye.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Thank you,
guys. Have a
Niharika.
great day.
Nice talking to everyone. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Archit.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.